Hello again, baseball lovers. We are back with a brand new episode, a special episode. We have a very special guest on this week's edition of the Romantic About Baseball podcast. I've got one of my battery mates with me, Josh Kermy, has joined me to help co-host this special episode, and our special guest is Jessica Brand, who we are so excited. We're so thankful to have her on. It's amazing to have a guest who knows so much about baseball and sports in general. She's not just baseball, but we'll get into a little bit of that. Quick background on Jessica. She is a Sports Emmy winner for her work on MLB Tonight. She's previously worked with MLB Network and NHL Network as a researcher and served as an odds maker at FanDuel. She's currently a brand ambassador for Sports Reference's Baseball Reference and StatHead. Those are my Bibles, by the way. I use those every day. She is also a live game researcher for Sports Radar. She provides real-time stats for MLB broadcasts for the Guardians, the Twins, Mariners, Diamondbacks, Padres, and Rockies. How awesome is that? She also created, this is my favorite part, folks. This is my favorite thing about it. She also created the rarity score for the Immaculate Grid game from Baseball Reference, and she shares her original research on X at Jessica D. Brand with work cited by Jason Stark. I think we all know Jason Stark in the Athletic. So that's a heck of a resume, Jessica. We are so happy to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It really is a true pleasure and honor with a great job with what you do across all the social media to really promote this great game. And it really is a true love.
Thank you. We try. That was the original idea behind this was just to share the love of baseball with other baseball lovers. We never intended for it to have 60 plus thousand followers or to have a podcast. That's all been a pleasant surprise for us to do this. So we're having a lot of fun. We've gotten to talk to a lot of great people, but I think yours is the most impressive resume by far. So we're super excited to have you on. So tell us a little bit from that romantic about baseball perspective. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be a baseball fan. What was the original spark of your baseball fandom?
Yeah, so there's two prongs to this. There's one where my uncle Brian, who lives out in Cleveland, he originally got me a Chief Wahoo hat back in those days in the 90s when I grew up. I wasn't really into the sport back then, so I wore it around for fun. But my real story is that my late father, I was 12, my mother decided to surprise him with baseball tickets. He's originally from New York. So we got him tickets and everybody in the family, me, my mother, and me, my mother, and him, and we all go out to New York and we see Boston at New York. Complete surprise for him. He has no idea, which is great for him. My father's originally from New York. So, being the curious mind that I am, I've always loved learning no matter what it is and finding out the knowns of the unknown. I didn't know any of the players, I didn't know any of the language that anyone was speaking. And that inspired me to learn on that level. So, my father got me interested in that way, and he could teach me about the players and everything like that too. But it's important to note, my father was a statistician that did work with like Yum Brands, which is like your Taco Bell, your KFC, and he made Netflix part of
Yeah.
what it is today with his stats work. So he was a statistician and he was a professor of psychology and everything like that. So he got me into the stat side of these things. So that helped me create my own models for baseball and projecting baseball. I do like standings and projecting who wins the World Series and everything like that. That's where the Ozmaker sides of me comes from. So my father got me into it in terms of like curiosity, learning the unknown, but ultimately a lot of different angles within that too. It wasn't just the sport. As much as I love the sport, it's the stats, it's the history, and goodness knows he loved his history too.
Yeah.
But basically, all the work I do for him, he's since passed years and years ago. I try to carry his legacy forward in all that I do and really all the success that I have. Thanks to him, because without him, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. I think a lot of us were tied back to the original fandom through our family. Mine was my grandparents teaching me the game. We were TBS folks watching the Braves every night on TBS. So yeah, the stats when I was a kid, looking at the back of a baseball card was like the most special thing, you could do. And looking at those stats and I was never good at math, Jessica, but I love stats. To this day, I love because baseball is a game that you can really tell the story of a game from 1950 if you want to, just with the box score, and
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
completely agree. You look at 1947, Jackie Robinson. Like, did Jackie Robinson steal home? Like, you see that reflected within the box score. That is the story. It'll give you like stolen base Robinson ninth inning, right? And it'll tell you
Right.
that he's safe. Like maybe it's controversial, but like in the moment that that run won the game for the Dodgers.
Exactly. And Baseball Reference, who you're a brand ambassador for, I mean, you can go back and look at a game from 1928 and see who scored the winning runs and, excuse me, who had who got the win, which usually was a starting pitcher because they never took anybody out back then. But yeah, fascinating stuff with your background there. Josh, you want to kind of get into what role she plays now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would just love to hear what current role, you're doing now, and what does baseball look like into your daily life? I guess, as you mentioned already, maybe football is mixed in too.
Yeah, so every sport is really mixed in, but baseball is the primary one that I work. So I do work with football for like various stations and so forth across the country this time of year, but most months I'm doing baseball for a local affiliate for the teams that I've mentioned, and we're going to add in the Nationals this year, which is really cool. So it's an additional team I'll be adding. But what that looks like for me is sometimes I'll write like a big game preview that's for a day up in advance. Most days that's not the case. Sometimes it will be, but I'll write a game preview for like a producer or a graphics producer for the given regional sports network or RSN that I'm working on. And that way they can incorporate that type of thing into the broadcast. And what I do is I watch the game on MLB TV, on my TV, remotely too, which is really cool. I don't have to travel for this at all. And I will give stats like every 8 minutes or as the moment seems fit for a given game. Obviously, if the game's exciting, I will have more. And a lot of times, what I'll send through Slack, so it's all text, it's not even voice, but what I'll send gets said a lot of times on the air, made into graphics or said by announcers. And it's crazy stuff, really. You might know of that 9-0 comeback that the Rockies had last season where they were down 9-0
Yeah.
through half an inning. I worked that game for the Rockies.
Wow.
So that game was sending stats like every 5 minutes as comebacks were happening. And if you listen to that broadcast back, there's a joke made in the booth that the last team to fall after scoring 9 or more runs in the first for an NL team was the Pirates. It's the walk home game against the
Against the
Phillies,
Phillies. Yeah.
basically. And
Yeah.
I put that in the chat. I'm like, how about we give them some hope? And that line got said on the air because I sent it
Wow.
up. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So you sit there, so you do that for all those teams. Like, you don't have to do it simultaneously,
No,
right?
usually, right.
Okay.
Usually it's, usually, no, thank goodness, no.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
my,
that'd be a
my
lot.
most I'll ever do is I'll do it for two teams in one game at once, or I'll do two games in a day. But
Okay.
usually it's actually just one team in one day. So either way, it's not that bad. Like sometimes I'll get a double header too, just like a player. It's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I always get the MLB package. So next time I'm watching one of those teams' games, I'm gonna be thinking, I bet that stat came from Jessica. I bet it did. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool. So you direct communication, right, with the broadcast saying, okay, this is what we need to, put on screen in graphics.
So yeah, something like that. I'll say like, "Hey guys, this would make a cool idea for a graphic," and then a lot of the people I'm working with are producers and graphics people because it's kind of like working with the truck, but the truck is my house, which is really nice. So
That's
I can
awesome.
just eat while I watch too. And the funny thing is too, I'm doing the stats for fun, right? So it's just like I'm doing what I'd be doing for fun, but I get paid for it. It's my job.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How do you get that gig, Jessica? We need to talk afterwards.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I got a funny story about that's how I got in the sports industry, real quick. So
Yeah,
I'm
awesome.
saying that I'm applying for an ESPN job back in like I don't know, like early 2021 or something like that. I had previously made it on campus to Bristol, met uh, oversaw SVP Scott Van Pelt eating like
Yeah,
this rabbit's out and everything like that. So I'm like, I didn't get it. I made it to campus, so I had a fun time there and seeing all the things they have. Like they have a
yeah.
college sports band with every fight song as you play down to the cafeteria. You could
Wow.
play Yeah Alabama, you could play Tar Heel Born and Dead. You could play whatever you wanted. But anyway, so I applied for another job there in 2021, and my MLB Network boss, who was the director of research and everything like that, he says, "Hey, why don't you apply for MLB Network and we'll set up an interview for you?" Because he finds my work on social media that's really good and everything like that, right? Or at least he
Yeah,
thought it was good. I don't know if it's good, but he thought it was good.
it's
I did
good.
a
I've
couple
seen it. It's
interviews
good.
there and I wound up getting that job. And one thing leads to another. Sports is like entertainment, right? In terms of how
Absolutely.
it works on the field, but also as an industry. Because my
Yeah,
belief is that if you know someone in the industry, it can open so many doors. It's just getting that first front foot in the door.
yeah,
But my Twitter account led me to getting the jobs in this. And what did I open a Twitter account? because people were streaming games live. They were streaming NFL, MLB, and I would give
Yeah.
stats in real time, and people wanted to read more of them all the time. So I'm like, okay, why not open a Twitter account and more people can read them? They're going to get reach, and that's where a lot of people are anyway. So take advantage of that. It just made
Yeah.
sense to me. And that's how I've gotten really every job, just through connections and showing that I have familiarity with really how to make this stuff work.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So when you're sitting there and you're watching a game and you think, I mean, do you just think of a stat? You're like, this would be really cool to look this up right now. So do you use baseball reference
Yeah,
or?
so it depends on the source. So Sport Reader itself is really cool. So they have their own proprietary software that we'll use the majority of the time, and it's linked with what is MLB official, and that matters. When you're using something like StatHead, it will use RBIs that go before 1920. MLB officially will say RBIs do not count before 1920.
Yeah.
But sometimes things are quicker to use on StatHead and Baseball Reference. So I think that's a better use of my time there, as long
Yeah.
as it's efficient and it matches the data and constraints, right? Because let's say saves, you can't use those before 1969 officially. They exist. Sure, RBIs exist before then, but MLB doesn't count them. You have to know the special rules about that type of thing. So if I'm
Yeah.
doing an RBI search, I will use Sport Radar for sure, just to make sure I don't run into any accidents like that. And even
Yeah.
then, in the 1920s, you'll run into things where the MLB official count will be a little bit off because sometimes the base runners are inconsistent about box scores and sourcing that way. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of little minefields that you have to be careful about. They're not grenades, but they are certainly little sticks in the woods that you can trip your feet on.
Right. Yeah. No, if there's one thing I've learned from doing the Facebook page, and StatHead was when I got StatHead, I said, this is it. Like, this is going to help me. I mean, it changed the whole page. I was able to do things I wasn't able to do before, but I've learned very quickly that if you make a mistake, there are plenty of people to call you out on it on
Yeah, I
social
mean,
media.
I find that social media, like if I make a mistake, I always am thankful for really the community I've built. I'm sure you're the same way, but if I make a mistake, I will always say, quote, thank you to this person for correcting me. This is
Yes.
this and that's that and everything like that. Half the time, I wonder if those posts get better engagement because people are more happy to correct you than say what a good stat
Oh,
is. So,
no doubt. No
yeah,
doubt. And like you said, I
yeah,
have some good loyal followers that'll back me up and say, hey, mistakes happen, but
yeah.
some of them just have to be jerks. But I did learn that really quickly. That's fascinating though, that so do you still enjoy the game aspect of it outside of the stats?
Oh, absolutely. My rule every night, even work it or not, assuming my game is not the last one that goes for the night, I will watch basically every late night game, and I will make a point to turn on the last game of the night, so that way I
Yeah.
can kind of enjoy it. When TV stations used to use like test signals to show the night is done, that's my
Yes.
equivalent of that. Wait for the test signal, basically.
Okay. That's very cool. Yeah, I was trying to explain that to my daughter one time that used to television signed off, they played the national anthem, and there was no more television after that. And she's like, Dad, you're crazy. That's insane. That never happened. I'm like, trust me, it happened. Josh, did you have anything else before I jump into the next category? I want to make sure you got yours covered.
Yeah, no, I'm all set.
Okay. So, Jessica, I want to go back a little bit and talk again about like your baseball fandom history. Is there a moment or a series or a game or that stands out to you that you really either made you fall more in love with the game or kind of summarizes what baseball means? Anything in particular you can think of?
Yes, that's actually pretty recently, believe it or not, but it really kind of made sense. So I was fortunate enough to go to Game 5 of the World Series in 2024 when the Dodgers clinched. And obviously that was a big deal. So
Yeah.
not only did I get to see the history, but I was with my friend JD, who I used to do a podcast with years and years and years ago. He flew out all the way out from LA. We saw the game together, and we just saw history. And we saw Kike Hernandez throw a ball to us up in the stands right before the game started. Like,
Oh, wow.
I mean, the thing is that that kind of thing sticks with you. You have a connection with the players. I got an incredible sunset photo of Yankee Stadium that I have to show you because it's like the sun is setting on the field and the season at the same time. I'm like, boy, this is
Wow.
artistic. My
That's
goodness.
awesome.
But like it just sticks with you because you saw all these moments that people talked about really for years about like Judge dropping the ball, Rizzo and Rizzo and Cole fighting, and you saw what people didn't see is that Cole was just beating up in the dugout like consistently, and they never talked about that on the broadcast. Like he was just
Wow.
irate. And then we
Wow.
got to see people on the field. You saw Kershaw with no shirt on, and he looked like he had his big dad bod on, just celebrating with everybody. You
Yeah.
had you had Anthony Bonda, you had Honeycutt basically celebrating with the fans like getting things signed, pictures, and everything like that. All these fan correspondences and the thing is too, you never see this. Families with kids celebrating the game because everyone
Yeah,
is a kid in that moment on the field. It is
absolutely.
just surreal to see that kind of celebration. I mean, I realized it was recent, and I'm in my mid 30s now, but like that
Yeah,
moment just defined to me what baseball is all about. Not even just because of the win, but for what joy you could see across families, across generations, across countries. Baseball is a global game, but it was isolated to that one moment in that spot, and that's beautiful.
it is beautiful. Yeah, that's a good summary of romantic about baseball right there. That's fantastic. Please send me that picture
I
of
will.
Yankee. I
Yeah.
want to see that. That's pretty awesome, Josh, that she was at game five. That's pretty cool. I've only been at a clinching division series game, never anything beyond that. So
Yeah,
pretty cool.
uh, unfortunately, as a Tiger fan, I was at every single playoff game in 2006 and 2012.
Um. Well,
Sorry to bring up bad memories for you there,
I
Kermit.
was there when
I
Maglio
was
hit
just
the home run
immaculate.
off Houston Street, though. So there was
Yeah,
some good, just not the
Yeah.
ultimate yet.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jessica, Kermit's currently worried about the Tarek Skubal situation. So once that's resolved, I'm sure hopefully he'll be feeling better, or we may have to send somebody to check on him.
I'm
If
very
if we
doubtful
need.
on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I gotta say, I'm on his side about it. I don't think he's gonna be brought back too long, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical, Josh. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I wanted to be
I'm
more
with you.
positive.
I'm unfortunately being realistic and facing the reality.
Look, as a Braves fan who's had to watch Freddie Freeman win two rings, I've been there. So if he goes to the Dodgers, especially. I get it. I get it. I've had to watch Freddie. I love Freddie. We loved Freddie. We didn't want him to leave. Now he's won two titles. So we'll kind of take that and roll into just there's so much. We may have to have you back on because I really want to ask you. Let me ask you about this before we jump to the Dodgers. So you won a sports Emmy. I'm
Hmm?
fairly certain you're the first person I've ever spoken to who won an Emmy award. You
Mhm.
want to tell us a little bit about that? You said it was for MLB Network, correct?
Yeah, it's for MLB Network. So when I worked on MLB Tonight as a researcher, which the cool thing about MLB Network, I live like 5 minutes from here. That's why I actually live where I do now because they hired me.
Okay.
I want to live close to the studios. You plug in the cord, you put it in this giant computer that has like 20 different buttons of people you can talk to, from graphics to director, producer to like all the on-air people. I'd love to do on-air, honestly. That's my big dream of mine. As much
Yeah.
as I love researching, like Sarah Lang's, I consider myself like Sarah Lang's with Howie Schwab with a side of Timu on it. But no, like
That's a good combo there. That's good.
it's good.
I like it. I like
I
it.
I
remember
love my
that Stump the
trivia.
Schwab. I remember that show, the
Yeah,
Stump the Schwab show.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I try to do now because Howie unfortunately is gone. I try to live through
He
him because I
is,
love my baseball
unfortunately.
trivia. But no, but
Hmm.
MLB Network, it was so surreal to get that because when I found out I won it, I wasn't working at MLB Network at the time, but it was
Yeah,
just so thrilling to see that because I'm like, wow, not only do I have like, the pay and I love my job and everything I do, but this is something tangible that I can always hold my head on forever.
yeah,
That, that's part of the EGOT. Like, how many people in sports would love to work in sports, but also have something like that to their name? Like, that's something
absolutely.
that's like, they can't take that away from me.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad thing to have on a resume at all. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, just in general, how is it? How was it working for MLB Network? I mean, was it as cool
Oh,
as
it
it
was a
sounds,
thrill.
or
It was a thrill. So
yeah,
what I do for MLB Network, a day in the work, day in the life there. So what I would do usually most days, when it's not NHL, so we'll give MLB, I would write a game packet or a game preview that would go in like a 25, 30-page game packet
yeah,
previewing each and every game for every game of the season. So depending on what things would look like there, right?
yeah,
So I do that. That would take like maybe 90 minutes to a couple hours, honestly. And these days, I spend actually a lot. I was not as good as it I am now. These days, I'll spend more like 3, 4 hours to make sure I got my packet notes right. Because like one of my things I sent this year that I was proud of, for instance, was when I did Walker Bueller's first start with the Phillies. Did you know he's the only player ever, only pitcher ever, to start a game for two different teams after recording the World Series final out the year prior? Like that's
no
something I
idea.
found out earlier this
That's
year when
pretty
I was doing
cool.
my research. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea. There's a lot of debate sometimes. If I post a stat, there's a lot of debate on the page among baseball followers. Your opinion on, is is batting average still important or is that outdated? Is there a certain stat that you look at specifically to determine, let's say a batter, we'll get to pitchers next,
Mm.
but for a batter, is there a specific stat or two or three stats you look at to really determine their effectiveness as an offensive player?
Yeah, so I'm prone to, in particular, WOBA, or weighted on base average, or
Hmm.
weighted runs created plus, WRC plus. Those are really good. A lot of people fall into the trap of looking at StatCast stats, which are great, don't get me wrong, but those are meant to be used really descriptively. You don't use them to project
Yeah.
a player. They can tell you what's happened, but they're not great for what's going to happen. One thing I like to look at too, when it's a more macro batter in this sense, how does this player's heat map basically match with the weather? I have my own factors that I look at for that when I'm modeling, like not only for the park itself, but what the wind factor itself is going to blow to, basically.
Wow.
And you look at the orientation of parks, because not every park is oriented in the same direction relatively geographically. So
Right.
when you look at something like that, you have to really adjust for how a given player is going to do in that respect. And then one thing I like to do live, oh, that's for a picture, but you'll like this one when I get to a picture.
Okay. So
Okay.
that's cool. So like in the case of say, when Pete Alonso gets traded to Baltimore, do you look at to project Alonso's season? Are you looking at the difference in that ballpark as compared to
Yeah.
City Field?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at something like wall height because like people forget that Camden Yards is a pretty tall right field, right? I mean,
Yeah.
City Fields was certainly a little bit deeper, but certainly when you look at a ball hitting a little bit higher, I mean that's historically been something we've always looked at, going back to Fenway or even Ebbets Field or something
Yeah.
like Shibe Park. These parks all had pretty tight walls historically, so I always have to look at wall height. Wall height is something that I think is consistently underexplored with what's going on in batter profiles. I think what was interesting, really, when we talk about ballpark movement this year was the Royals and Kaufman bringing in the fences. It
Yeah.
means that Coors Field has by far the deepest fields right now in baseball by square inches of field area, right?
Wow.
So wouldn't expect that, but it's true.
No.
Right.
No, you would
And
not.
that's
I
one
had no idea. Go
and
ahead,
that's
Jeff.
one reason why they talk about it. They even like whether it's Coors and even Kaufman, singles, doubles, triples being so much more. It's not just about the more home runs in those fields because of that square area that you just referenced.
No, exactly. That's why when I thought the Dodgers brought in Freddie Freeman, people say, "Oh, his home runs are going to decline," but this guy can still leg it out, hit the gap for
Yeah.
extra bases. Dodger Stadium over the last 3 years has had about a 9% average to left center and right center field, hitting doubles and triples above an expected park, basically on a neutral weather day. It is one of the
Wow.
best parks in baseball for hitting extra base hits. Never gets talked about. It is plus 10% over average for a home run to dead center field, and people wonder, oh, well, why does Freddie hit a lot more center field home runs now? Because that's the park he hits it in. Think about that home
Yeah.
run he hit in the 18th inning. It was to dead center field. It is a favorable park for someone with his swing plane, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's
He has a big uppercut, just like
he
Riley.
does.
They
Yeah.
just like Riley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's extremely cool. So while we're on Freddie Freeman, real quick, Jessica, this was a debate recently too. Has Freddie played himself into a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah, that's really close to me. If he keeps up doing what he's doing, I do think he saw a little bit of a dip this year. But like, if he keeps at this level for the remainder of his contract, the fact that he's won World Series with different teams, the fact that he's consistently performed with big moments, I realize that's not really what we necessarily evaluate on. But like something like that is really an extra scoop of ice cream, the extra cherry, and the whipped cream. It sticks
Yeah.
out. And he's been doing it with great fielding too. Don't forget that. It's not like he's
Yeah.
only there because, he had to bat there because, there was no DH for a while in the NL. This guy does it all. I think he has to be first ballot. And the thing is too, the ballots are getting thinner, and you're not going to see a lot of classes where nobody is elected. And that's not a
Sure.
slight on Freeman at all, but it really is in his favor to get in early and probably first.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then it's funny as we are recording this. Have we seen the announcement? I have not been looking at my phone. The Hall of Fame announcement is supposed to be coming soon.
At on the hour.
Okay. All right. So fingers crossed. What do you think about this? I think Beltran's in. Do you think
Mm.
Andrew gets in? And do you think Andrew Jones deserves to get in?
I think Andrew Jones deserves to get in. I don't think he will get in this cycle. I think he will next cycle. I think he should have been voted in years ago. By far
Yeah.
the best center field I ever grew up with, because I grew up in the 90s and early aughts. He is the
Yeah.
best center field of our generation, or my generation. Why
Agreed.
not?
Yeah. Agreed. And he hit over
Yeah.
400 homers. It's not like he couldn't hit.
Yeah,
He's a
exactly. At
great defender
51
and
and
he can hit.
05, pretty good.
Yeah.
And that was the Pictures
Yeah.
era. So, like, you adjust that for now, that's closer to like 57, 58. I mean, if we talked about a guy who was playing center field and really had, what was the UZR, I believe, about 18 that year. That guy, I mean, I realized he kind of dipped towards the end, but he was still reasonably playing corner outfield. He was still hitting 20 home runs.
Yeah.
He only dropped off because he was not a good fit for Dodger Stadium. He was fine with the White Sox, fine with the Yankees.
Right.
Should be in.
Yeah, well, crossing my fingers, but most of what I've seen indicates what you said. It'll probably be next year, his last year on the regular ballot. I would be remiss not to ask you this. I love the Hall of Fame conversation. Mattingly and Dale Murphy, yes or no on those guys?
No, no on both,
No
unfortunately.
on both.
No,
Yeah,
I don't. I'm a bigger believer in longevity over peak. I realize that's, obviously debatable, but my thought is that it is harder to adjust over a longer career because pitchers have more time to analyze you, more times for fresh arms, and more times for a variety of arms too.
yeah,
So for that reason, I think it's hard for me, in my opinion. I love both players. I just
yeah,
think it's a
yeah,
different skill set than really what the Hall of Fame demands. If this
yeah.
was basketball where they have looser standards, they both would easily get in. But baseball really has trended more towards longevity outside of like the Frankie Frisch guys, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that makes sense. I'm a big Dale Murphy guy, but I understand that argument completely. So that makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
It's interesting that you stated like, okay, I'm a longevity over period of time.
Mm,
Because like for instance, we're talking MLB Network. Like Brian Kinney he talks about periods of dominance all the time, right? That's why he says like he thinks Chase Utley, for example, should be in, right? Just I guess into why you think you're into the longevity versus this. I think it's a new age because of what Jason just or what you just mentioned, how the classes are getting thinner because just the cumulative stats are just going to be different, whether it's the hitters and the pitchers.
yeah, it's really tough for pitchers. I still have yet to come up with what really makes sense for pitchers at this point. And it's really tough for me when I look at a guy like King Felix Hernandez, right? Because, it was such a short peak, didn't really pitch in the postseason because the Mariners were quagmired there. But certainly when you talk about late aughts, early tens pitchers, it's probably him and Sabathia that are and Halladay that are the ones that really come to mind. And Halladay was off his peak at that point too. So I don't know. It's really tough for me. I know how I feel about batters, but pitchers, I still have yet to calibrate because we're not going to see a guy lose 300 games, let alone win 511. Like
Yeah.
that's just not baseball now.
Right. Right.
Right, and like I read something today. Probably the last three. Clayton's the last guy who's going to get 3,000 Ks, right?
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
Yeah,
Wow.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The standards will obviously change as time goes on. Fascinating discussion. We could go on. I mean, I could just ask you
Right.
about more players, but
Yeah.
we're going
Right.
to have you on again if you're open to it because,
Absolutely. This is
yeah.
awesome. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. So let's talk about the elephant in the room with the Dodgers. So as we record this, it's been a few days, but Kyle Tucker signs with the Dodgers, and the internet explodes, and everybody is either, "Hey, the Dodgers are ruining baseball," or "Hey, no, they're making baseball better." All of this with the background of labor strife coming. We know it's coming in 2027. There's a decent chance, I believe, and a lot of people believe that we don't have baseball at all in 2027. Just your thoughts in general, Jessica, about the Dodgers and where we're at with the finances of MLB and where we're headed.
Yeah, so I have to try to stay a little bit positive about this, but I'm a very mixed opinion about this. I made a tweet a few days ago that really got people in uproar. So I said that this is good for the game of baseball itself. Now I think that's true. And I said like Billy Bean said in Moneyball that having a villain that's constant in baseball draws eyes to it. It gets attention on people
Yeah,
like that, and that's a good thing for the sport. Basketball's always had that. Hockey's always had that. Football always will have that with dynasties. To have
yeah,
that to point to gives people a reason to watch, gives people a reason to want to know what's going on in fear of missing out. Now, what's good for the game is not necessarily good for every club, right? If you're the Rockies or the White Sox or the Angels, that's awful. You have no chance at these guys. Like, let alone having a chance to contend, you can't bring in these big free agents, right? There's no chance of it. And even if you're the Rockies, you bring in Chris Bryant, didn't really work. But the problem is, I keep seeing that there needs to be a cap and probably a tiered cap. I just don't think there's really enough of a reason that these teams are going to agree on that. The problem is too, who did the Dodgers beat out? And this is where I'm concerned from a labor perspective. They beat out the Mets. They
yeah,
beat out Cohen and the Mets, who wound up signing Bichette. When you do something like that, you aggrieve the Yankees, who lost to them in the World Series. You beat out the Mets for Tucker, and you beat you beat out Boston, really, who was potentially interested in there because Boston's starting to fall off a little bit. The trend I notice is those three teams, the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and sometimes the Dodgers. If you annoy any three of those four, and this is why I believe the Houston scandal blew up to the extent it did. You agree with three of those four. It's essentially a majority of the superpowers. You bother them, something will happen, and you will be blamed, or something will
Yeah,
be a standstill. I'm not the most I don't know. I'm not the most optimistic about what's going to go down immediately after the CBA expires. I think it's going to be a long one. I think we'll see baseball in 2027, but I don't think there's any reason to think this is going to be a speedy resolution by any means. What I think you wind up seeing happening is a floor, essentially, kind of like how the NBA has a floor, where
yeah,
if you don't reach the floor, then it gets redistributed to the players. What I thought was interesting about really all of this, you contrast something like the Tucker signing to what Bob Nutting did in Pittsburgh this year. You bring in a guy like Ryan O'Hearn. Now, Ryan O'Hearn might not be the biggest name, but he's kind of noticeable that he's really the biggest free agent deal. So don't count Brian Hayes here, for instance, that
yeah,
Pittsburgh has really brought in. Ben Carrington is a developmental guy in their front office. And why do you think that is? Because it wants to show that these teams are willing to spend a little bit. So that leaves me credence that teams are willing to spend to send a message that they really can't compete with this, even if it's a little bit of publicity, but also to show that maybe there's a fair point to be a floor. The concern with the floor is that eventually some of these guys are going to be wind up signing to bigger deals that really than they should be, right? You see this all the
yeah,
time in the NBA's middle class, guys who sign really bigger deals than really the MLE would allow for,
for sure.
right?
Yeah,
And you start to see that, and you look at baseball from a really long perspective, that's what's going to be the concern about these middle class free agents getting big deals. And I think that and the deferred money. The deferred money is really what I think baseball needs to work on when signing
yeah,
bonuses and all these things don't count against the cap and they count as average annual value. When someone like Tucker doesn't live really in a taxable state. Like that independent of baseball is a little bit of a concern about how that's codified in. Good for the Dodgers
yeah.
for taking advantage. Any team should take advantage of that. But I just think
Absolutely.
that's bad legislature. That's bad CBA.
I agree. I agree with most of what you said. I don't blame the Dodgers. They're
No,
playing
not at
within the
all.
rules that are set
That's
out,
smart.
and they're trying to take advantage and win all they can before this CBA. So I do go back and forth because I lived through 1994 and all the rhetoric that went on that year, and I've always heard the players say, well, the owners say we're losing money. The owners say we're losing money. We're losing money. Bob Nutting probably would say I'm losing money. The players say they're lying. They're not losing money, they're exaggerating. And so I don't really know where the truth lies there. I know TV deals play a huge role in this as well, the money they get. And you've got a lot of teams that are kind of searching right now, including my Braves, for a TV partner now. Probably going to be taken over by MLB for a while. Just your
Yes.
thoughts on, do we know if the owners are actually losing money? Do we know?
Yeah, yeah, we do. So I believe it's Toronto or Atlanta. Like one of them has the books open because it's kind of owned by like commute by I think it's the Jays because of commute Rogers Communications and everything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Now because based upon that, there's not a reason to really believe that it's losing money. Now, losing money could be relative to an expected spend because obviously you could have more if you had a better TV deal. If you're a laggard on a TV deal, like look
yeah,
at the Dodgers and their TV deal in particular because of how McClure kind of bankrupted them and how they don't have to revenue share. So in that sense, yeah, you're losing money to what maybe an average team is because you can
yeah,
say you're losing money in any respect. Like you can say you're losing money if you dropped $1 off your projection. There's all kinds of ways to manipulate that
right.
statement, and they're not
Yeah,
wrong to do it. But
true.
there's two
Yeah,
sides to both story here, and I think the answer is really more towards the player side in terms of where money is going. But owners relative to projections are probably actually losing money relatively. They're not wrong
right.
to say that, but it's
Yeah.
not entirely true.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because I think the worst thing that happened to Braves management last year was the article that came out. I forget which publication, but it said basically the Braves are making money hand over fist from the battery, just racking it up, but they're not necessarily putting it back into the team like fans would want them to. They are putting it back. The Braves are spending, but the Braves talk about being a top five payroll team, and they've been more in the 8 to 10 range recently. But point is, I think the owners would prefer not to have those kind of articles come out,
No.
and management would prefer that. And it's so funny to me, Jessica, because I just wrapped up a series on the Black Sox, a three-part series about the Black Sox scandal, and these are the same discussions they were having in 1919. Players are unhappy with money, owners are being stingy, they're not paying the players. it's crazy to me that we're 107 years later and we're having the same conversations that we had then.
Yeah, you ever hear of a guy called Davey Force? Either one of you?
I have not. No.
So Davey Force was a guy who played everywhere in the 1870s, 1880s. He was basically a no-hit all-field shortstop, which was really highly valued at the time. This is where this is significant. In 1874, I believe it is, he signs or tries to sign with Chicago, and then Philadelphia tries to take back his rights, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So there's a dispute over his rights, and there's a dispute over does the player have the right to do that? And this is before the reserve clause exists. Remember,
Yeah.
1873, 1874 is the National Association before the National League exists. But to unify the contracts, to unify the league, that is why we have the National League, because of a guy named Davey Force, who really the leagues couldn't agree upon it, basically about who owned his rights, and that's why the reserves clause exists, essentially. So even if we
Yeah.
stretch it back, then even more than the Black Sox, about Comiskey paying out guys, about what Seacott was doing, about all these bonuses that were kind of benching guys for not winning 30 games, it goes back to almost the Civil War, and these are these same things
Yeah.
keep on repeating themselves. It's crazy. You look at Kurt Flood and Marvin Miller and all these things in the 70s. You look at what goes on with now with the TV deals. You look at what goes on with the expansion of the wild card. You look at what happens with more national superstations like we grew up with WGN and TBS. Really, it is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same story just repackaged in different ways.
Yeah. That's my next historical series is going to be on 70s baseball, and I can't wait to get into Kurt Flood and the free agency and Bowie Kuhn and all the arguments that went on there. It's going to be fascinating. Um, all right, so let's wrap it up with some fun. First of all, I got to say, awesome, awesome interview. We're going to have you back as many times as you want to come back. You have an open invitation. All right. In
Awesome.
fact, if you need a full-time gig as a podcaster, I'm going to kick Kermie off here and just
Yeah, I'll
take your
gladly
spot.
step away, but I'll be your assistant.
It's an unpaid position, but
Absolutely.
yeah, but so let's have some fun, Jessica. I'm gonna throw a few questions at you and just rapid fire here. So,
All right.
favorite ballpark?
Favorite ballpark, Dodger Stadium. I got to be front row like for a Dodgers game that I went to for my birthday a few years ago. They have all their Cy Youngs, their MVPs, every single award. It's incredible, and the place feels so good. I love historical ballparks, so that's my weakness.
So, have you been to a lot of ballparks? Like,
Yeah. I try to see like every single one. Like I've
yeah,
seen a few, but I'm going to do like a Midwest tour next year, which could be really fun. So
yeah,
Well,
very
you ever
cool.
come to Detroit, let me know.
I will. I will. Yeah, I would love to go to Detroit.
Yeah,
That's a special team. Yeah.
yeah. I can't wait to get
Yep.
up there. My wife and I are trying to do that. We've only started. We just started. I've been to seven, so I got a long way to go. But we're
Oh yeah.
planning, hopefully Pittsburgh. We're definitely going to Fenway because my son's up there. So very cool. All right, favorite ballpark food.
Favorite ballpark food. Okay, so this is gonna sound so terrible. The correct answer here is hot dog, but
Yeah,
in Lycan Suites in Yankee Stadium, because that's where I'm near. I'm like 30 minutes away from there. They
yeah,
have the best like Lobel's like tenderloin steak that you could imagine. Does and you put a little bit of horseradish on it. It is so
yeah,
succulent. It's so buttery, and Lycan Suites is totally free. But it
yeah.
is oh my goodness, I would pay $50 for it. But it's so good.
Sounds good. I haven't had lunch or anything. That sounds amazing right now.
Yeah, me neither.
So is a beer at the game or Coke
Beer
or
the Yeah, so I usually will do Coke, but like I like to do these days I like to do like a local brewery because I was at Wrigley last year, which is really nice. They had an
yeah,
old style beer, which was perfect way to get started with the game, honestly. So whatever's
yeah,
local.
yeah. So we did Wrigley not last summer but summer before, and it was like Mecca for a baseball fan. For a lifelong
Oh
baseball
my god,
guy, it was amazing to be at Wrigley.
so it was so good. I
Yeah,
love that
Yeah.
place.
So I did rig. My dad lived in Chicago for a couple years when I was young, but then a few years later, after he moved back, went to Wrigley. Went to a game against it was the well multiple games, but one game I did get to see Sammy and Ken and Griffey Jr. hit one out in the
oh
same
wow,
game. So that
Oh,
was
wow,
pretty cool at Wrigley.
very
wow.
cool, very cool.
Hmm.
I think I never saw Griffey in person. I saw Bonds hit a couple dingers against the Braves. Yeah, my regret is I wanted to see Griffey, but interleague play was different back then.
Yeah.
It was hard to get to an interleague series, and the Mariners didn't come to Atlanta very often. So, all
I was
right,
lucky
so we got
American League getting to see him
yeah,
here.
yeah. So we covered the food. What about favorite player to watch now that's playing now, Jessica?
I mean, it's cliche, but I love Otani. You don't know what you're going to see on a given night with him.
Yeah,
Like he's doing things that really kind of remind me, take me back to the 1880s. It remind me of Guy Hecker. Like Guy Hecker is like before this, like the like one of a few players with Jim Tobin to hit 3 home runs in a game, and of course Otani's the first one to have 10 strikeouts and 3 homers in the same game. Like
yeah,
this is video game stuff. Like the modern thing is the generational Ruth stuff, right? You even have the contrast of basically going cross town, right? So Anaheim to LA and Boston to New York, red team to blue team, starting a dynasty. And not only that, you had the off-field, the little bit of stuff with the e-pay stuff, but people forget Babe
yeah,
Ruth got suspended for the first 6 weeks of I believe 1922 because he was barnstorming, and people never remember that. The
yep,
parallels are just uncanny. I can't remember seeing anybody like this really in baseball. There's obviously a few in cricket and all rounders, but like in
yeah,
baseball, someone who can really do every single thing on the field. He doesn't field because we don't want to get him hurt, but like that's incredible. Yeah, this used to be Kershaw for me though, a crafty pitcher who had incredible location and really just won the old-fashioned way. And he would go deep in games too. And he was a lefty, and he wore my number 22. So like,
Hmm.
yeah. Otani, I get aggravated on the page. We'll post something about Otani, and there's so much hate. And that guy
Hmm.
seems like he's just the nicest guy. He's a
yeah,
team guy. And I don't think people appreciate what we're watching. I don't think they appreciate everything you just said, that this is not something we've seen in a very, very long time and may not see again for a long time. So I do wish people would enjoy Otani more. I know playing for the Dodgers now, they're the villains, and that makes it difficult. As a Braves fan, it's hard for me to not like the Dodgers though, because Freeman's a great guy. Otani's a great guy. I love Mookie Betts.
yeah.
These are good guys Kershaw that you want to pull for. So just regardless of the jersey that they're wearing, sometimes I just pull for the guys, for the people in the jersey.
No, exactly. That's my favorite thing to do too. I will watch basically if there's a game on and I'm available, I'll watch it. Like I
Yeah.
love watching for storylines, watching for players, watching for history. Really, that's what I really get the most enjoyment out of baseball these days, though, because it can be anytime, anywhere, any place, anyone, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
what about favorite player to watch that's retired now, no longer playing?
No longer playing. I guess that's Kershaw, really. Kershaw or Maddox. I love Greg Maddox.
Oh,
Greg
Maddox.
Maddox was so smart, placed everything so well, and he would outwit you in so many different ways. He, to
Yeah.
me, was really the perfect pitcher to grow up with.
I love stories about Maddox. He
Mm,
would tell a story about, I think he did it to Jeff Bagwell specifically, but he would intentionally throw pitches in a certain sequence or throw a certain pitch in the regular season, knowing that they might play that guy in the postseason. So he set him up in the regular season. He even gave up a home run to him
mm.
in the regular season, but he was setting him up so he could get him out in the postseason. That's
Yeah, I
how
think it was.
far ahead this guy thought.
Yeah, I think this was game 162 too. So it was like they were going to play the Astros right after. So it was
Yes.
really perfect timing on top of that. Him
Yeah.
and Greinke, because Greinke's kind of quirky. You never know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
So like
True.
I love guys like that. Like guys like that and like that. And, excuse me, I'm trying to think of who it is. Rube Waddell. Rube Waddell is kind of like that too. Like these kind of
Yeah.
quirky guys and these smart guys too. It's completely opposite ends of the spectrum. But
Yeah.
pictures have always appealed to me. That's why I like the NL rules of picture batting because the unexpected. It's crazy fun to me like that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, absolutely. So last one. Do you prefer pitcher's duel or 8-7 shootout?
picture school. Like I said, I'm a picture at my heart. I really am. I kind of got a
Yeah.
wide delivery too and everything like that. Like it's classic. Like I was so disappointed when the Tigers and Pirates, because it's gonna be Paul Skeens versus Tariq Skubal, and they bump it off at him. Like, are you kidding me? We have the
Uh,
Because
two
yep.
pitchers of this generation, and they're gonna bump it off.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. But
Yeah.
I always look at the pictures. I study the pictures I'm gonna watch. And what I do for pictures a lot of times I have a really keen eye for this stuff. I can tell if guys are tipping, so that's part of the fun for me, and I can usually tell before a team does, which is really a weird skill. So,
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So I almost forgot. I don't want to pass this up. We'll
mm,
finish on this. So tell us a little bit about the story behind the rarity score, Immaculate Grid, which I know several of our followers and listeners play. I play myself. And if you're not familiar with it, audience, the Immaculate Grid is a game that Baseball Reference has every day. And it's a grid of 9 players, and they have different qualifications for those players. So it might be was an all-star and an MVP, and you try to plug in players that match those qualifications. And there's a score called the rarity score, where the easy way to say it, I guess, Jessica, is the more rare the player pick is. So
Mm.
if it's obviously Ken Griffey Jr., but you pick, I don't know, Sam Smith from 1941, you get a better rarity score. Does that make sense? Am I saying that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, the better, the
you
more rare your score, the more low your score.
right. So you created that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I talked with Brian Minner, who was the guy who originally did created the Immaculate Grid, but originally did not have a rarity score with it. And my thought was, okay, I can name all these guys, but what reason do I have to ever keep playing this again?
Right.
How do I do this so, not only so I can play again, but people can talk about how they played with others? What's a reason that Jose Altuve for Astros MVP is the most exciting pick that you can give? Because it's going to be the same thing every time.
Yeah.
So there's this game show in the UK that's called Pointless. Pointless is basically a reverse Family Feud where you try to give the least popular answer, and you're rewarded for doing that. So I figure people know Family Feud is a game show. It's pretty common, give most popular. But I'm like,
Yeah.
what if we made it so, and there's no wrong way to do it, you can pick most popular. It's actually kind of tough to pick all nine most popular, honestly. But
True.
what you try to do with that, why not try to pick the most rare ones, right? It really tests your depth of baseball knowledge, history, and everything
Yeah.
like that. Because when Sports Illustrated, they did an interview with me about how I created it. That's what I tell them. It's like the cool thing about this is you could go from 1871 to 2026, and these players are still going to connect from today. From Levy
Yeah.
Murray to, I don't know, let's say um, Romy Gonzalez, right? So just go random ones like that. Well,
Yeah.
Levy Morelli had the highest ever BABIP ever in 1871, so he is actually someone significant. But the point is, though, players can talk about this too. It was part of a larger article involving players and how they play. These guys will use little known teammates and everything like that, so it kind of connects to their career in that sense too, which is really cool. I didn't even intend for that. I never thought it'd be this big.
Yeah.
But they're going to make it a game show too, a national game show, which I'll be trying
Wow.
out for because I usually do kind of well on it. I get what I call a
Yeah.
ghost grid, which means zero rarity score. So
Okay. That's brilliant, by the way. That was brilliant. That's fantastic. It does add another level to the game because you do reach a point where you're like, why do I keep playing this if but it gives you
yeah,
a challenge. It was brilliant.
yeah.
Absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, and it connects. That's kind of the thing that I always say is important about baseball. So, like anytime that someone mentions, "Oh, I was at this game or that game," I'm like, "Let me find you a date. Let me find you a fact about this game."
Yeah.
Because my first game I ever went to is always a fun fact. So the
Yeah.
first game I ever saw was New York over Boston, 14-4. So here's the interesting fact. So the next day, Boston lost 11-1. They're the so Boston, of course, won the World Series in '04. Boston is the first and only team to ever lose consecutive games by double digits in the regular season and win the World Series later
Wow.
that year.
Wow. That's pretty impressive in 121 modern World Series. That's
Right.
to only
Yeah,
be the only team. That's pretty cool. Jessica, I cannot say enough how awesome this was and how grateful we are to have you on and how grateful we will be to have you back. Just amazing discussion. I could talk baseball with folks like you all day. Great stuff. Anything you need to plug? We mentioned your ex. We'll put it on the page as well.
yeah, excellent. Yeah, yeah. I always say I take requests. That is the key thing. Like I say, I will always try to find like a game date or facts or anything you want or anything you saw in a live game. Because as much as I would like to watch 15 games at once, I can't. But like
Yeah, yeah,
seriously, let me know what you want researched. Like let me know of a player, a game, a year, and I will do something about it because I find joy in doing it. It brings
yeah,
joy of people together. And in this world, no matter what we think or who we are, we need
yeah.
that.
We
Baseball is
definitely
the
need
best
that.
vessel.
Absolutely, we need that. So, I think what I just heard was I'm going to be blowing up your messenger asking you for
That's
that. So
right.
I think
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
welcome
that's awesome.
it.
All right. Hey, appreciate you so much. We're gonna sign off. You can stay on, Jessica, for just a second, but we're gonna sign off. Josh, thanks for helping me out here, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Jessica.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're gonna have new episodes coming, guys, as we move into the spring training. Finally, we're getting towards pitchers and catchers, and we're gonna start having team previews coming up. Josh will be back with me, our guys Nico and Bruce. Hopefully, we'll get the whole crew together. Be on the listen out also for a special roundtable episode we're gonna record with our buddies at Rounding Third Baseball. And I believe we got the guys from New York MLB Talk coming to join us for just a general roundtable discussion. We're going to record that on Wednesday, the 21st, which, as I'm recording this, is tomorrow. And so hopefully that'll be out by the end of the week for all of you guys who are waiting on that. And we're going to touch on the Kyle Tucker and the Dodgers situation and just about everything that's happened in the Hot Stove League. So we look forward to that. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks to Jessica again. We're going to have her back, no doubt about it. And in the meantime, everybody, we will see you at the ballpark.